Good morning to you.
Good morning, sir.
How are you?
We are all right, thank you, sir.
So I think you should first open your mathematics book and you will see what to do.
It's been almost 2 years since the pandemic forced all schools in Uganda to close. But the world's longest school shutdown lifted in January, and classrooms started to reopen. Top-graded nursery and primary, a private school inside the capital, once had 250 kids. Only 11 children, ages 5 to 12, made it to their desks the first week of class. They're all being taught at the same time by William Baruku, the school's only teacher right now.
409. Understand?
Understood.
This one is P3 class.
So these are all completely empty?
They are damaged even. Before Corona was good, but since Corona affected everything.
How does it make you feel to see all of these empty classrooms, the broken benches?
We are not happy. We are not happy to see empty classrooms.
At least 15 million students had their education put on hold while schools were closed. And in a country where only 2% of the population owns a computer or laptop, virtual learning was largely inaccessible. First Lady Janet Museveni, who's also the Minister of Education, defended the government's decision to keep schools closed.
Would you agree that government has refused to open schools simply because we consider the lives of our children more important than even education, because education comes to those who have life?
The government doesn't subsidize private schools, but it relies on them pretty heavily. In 2017, about 40% of elementary schools and over 60% of middle and high schools were private. Without school fees coming in, many struggled to survive the pandemic and are still at risk of closing.
This was a classroom?
Yeah. We had a veranda, so the veranda fell down.
And this was during the shutdown?
During the lockdown.
It's a good thing there was no one here when the veranda caved in.
Yes.
Do you think schools received enough government support in order to survive during the shutdown?
Government schools were getting help, but private schools, I don't think so. Even the government promised us that they are going to give us some money. Private teachers they used to promise us.
Are you hopeful that more students will re-enroll?
Yes, they will come, but not very many. Since the children are very few, I will wait. I will be patient.
When schools closed, many students had to work to help support their families, so returning to school now means losing income. Girls and young women were particularly vulnerable during lockdown.
We're at a shelter for pregnant teens. The number of girls who came through here nearly doubled last year because for a lot of them, schools were their safe space, and they lost that during the shutdown.
14-year-old Miramba came here in September after she gave birth to her son. We're not using her real name.
How did you feel when you found out that your school was going to be shut down?
I felt so bad because I wanted just to learn. I didn't want to stay home. I wanted to learn in order to achieve my goals.
What happened to you during the shutdown?
I began working, then that money could help us buy food. When I was selling charcoal, the landlord of the shop was like, I want you. As in, I like you. Then I was like, no. Then after, he used me by force. He used to scare me. Not to tell anyone, not to tell anybody. The neighbors were suspecting maybe this guy is pregnant, but I didn't have any sign because I wasn't vomiting, I wasn't sick, I had no any sign. If I was at school, this couldn't happen.
Between March 2020 and June of last year, UNICEF reported a nearly 23% jump in pregnancies for girls aged 10 to 24.
How do you feel about how the school shutdowns impacted so many teenage girls like yourself?
I feel so bad because many girls have been affected. Others won't be able to achieve their goals. Others were, I think, rejected from families. Others became orphans. Others became street kids. So the condition isn't so good.
Education NGOs in Uganda had been pushing the government to reopen schools for the past year. The National Teachers Union argued the shutdown was doing, quote, more harm than good.
Like any other country, we're not prepared for this pandemic at all. There is a lot we did not know, how it affects children. We had very low vaccination rates in the country, and compliance with the SOPs for preventing spread of COVID was not good initially. So closing the education institutions of learning was a very important public health measure.
The government promised to help private schools back in 2020, but a lot of administrators say all they've seen is red tape.
The teachers have not been paid in private schools, whereas for government, we've been paying our teachers even when we've not been teaching for all this time. So what government provided was a relief package of about $5.5 million to work as a revolving fund. Closing schools did not only protect the learners, but it actually protected the bread earners in those households. Because if we had lost parents, we would definitely have a higher dropout rate. The teenage pregnancies we are talking about would be much higher. We would even have a higher incidence of child labor.
The country is completely reopened now, and the government spokesperson told Vice News that it wouldn't close schools again unless there was a, quote, catastrophically high number of cases. But the damage is already done. The government claims that nearly a third of those who could go back to school may not.
Are you worried about going back to school?
Without my family and without anyone helping me, I think I can't.
What's your hope for the future?
If I could go to school, I think my future could be brighter. I would like to be a midwife. Education means everything to me. Because I think if I get education, I will even be better than how I am. And I will support my son as I can.